Welcome back, one and all, to the RimWorld Continental Army. When we last left off, Cosmic was just about to crack open this ancient danger. So I say, let's do it. My dear lord, to think this beautiful jade structure has been hidden right beneath our noses this whole time. Such gorgeous sarcophagi. This appears to be some type of sacred burial ground for the bullfrogs, or maybe even a place of worship. And defending it all is an ancient bullfrog warrior in some type of plasteel armor. Yoink! Don't mind if we do. With this disgusting but distinguishedly dressed bullfrog warrior out of the way, there was nobody stopping us from tearing down this sacred jade palace and using it for something, I suppose. Like, I haven't really planned out what we're going to use all the jade for. Maybe statues or something. But quite frankly, that's none of your business, and it is my business because I stole it fair and square. After the threat was neutralized, our army moved in quite quickly to begin dismantling the jade sacred palace. And now, of course, that this ancient danger is no longer a concern to us, it was time for us to absorb this part of the territory into our fortification. And now look, you're probably saying to yourself, good God, Rat Knight, but you already have so much land in your fortification already, what could you possibly want this land for? Well, my dear sugar plums, I plan on building beautiful farms in this new territory and getting rid of our old farming land. That way we can continue our beautiful city. And it's all going to be beautiful, damn it. And of course, speaking of our cities, we would continue working on our city streets all throughout the western section of our fortification. Which notably, as always, it's going to take quite a long time to get that done, so we have other business to attend to. Aha, yes, let us make more guns. This time around, we're going to be making a Palmer 1865 model carbine. Naturally, of course, as you already know, these guns are going to take quite a while to be created. Of course, though, they are faster than the sniper rifles that we were previously producing. And just as the sniper rifles, these carbines are going to be given to a new class of soldier. But I can't tell you right now what class that's going to be because it's my little secret. Now, while all those carbines are being created, I do want to use all the jade that we collected from the sacred frog tombs, or whatever the shit that was, to make a beautiful grand statue. But we're sure as shit not going to be using wood or steel, only the finest jade. And of course, there was no one more skilled or more deserving than Kenzaki herself. She and she alone would be tasked with building this beautiful, grand statue of someone, definitely not the president. But while all these projects are going on with our gunsmithing, our statue building, yada yada, I did notice that Cosmic's frog torture chamber is a little bit shabby. And we should really give him an appropriate torture chamber so that he can make sure he's getting all the appropriate information from those devilish amphibians. So of course, naturally, that's exactly what we began working on. The design here is going to be so that we have 3 holding cells to begin with. We can always dig more, of course, and 1 large section in the middle for the torturing tools and just the torture in general. It was quite the project, especially since we had to dig out the steel that was within as well. Oh, and also the part where we started getting raided while we were working on it. It would appear that our good old enemies, the British, have arrived nearby just outside our territory and began trying to siege us. Oh, those poor, dumb, tea-drinking, furry-loving fools. Don't they know that this fortification is, well, quite frankly, a fortification? It was designed for this exact purpose. This fort was not built to keep them out. It was to keep us in. And these bastards are about to find out exactly why. We immediately began firing upon them with our mortars. After striking them a time or two, the fools began attacking us. In doing so, of course, they were led directly into our spike traps, planted in all directions around our base. Truthfully, I must say that I was afraid. Not because we're being raided, but I was afraid that the spike traps would finish them off before they had the chance to get here so that we could start pounding their asses with our rifles. Because if there's one thing the Rat Daddy loves, it's pounding some British wait a minute. Anyway, though, the British began trying to enter our base, and there were a few of them that got hit by spike traps, but the others got shot by us, and eventually they began to flee like the cowards we knew they were. Disclaimer once again, I do love the British, but that's not going to stop me from hunting these bastards down in this virtual game and slaughtering them like hogs. To which of course we did. We had such a bloodlust going, I even ordered our men to shoot down these damn dirty Thromboians, just for the sheer thrill of it. And by good God almighty, it worked. And at the end of the day, we had a bunch of dead, furry, British vassal state people, a bunch of dead British people, and a bunch of Thromboians to cut up, eat, and we even began using their heads to mount on our walls, as you know we do, baby. Now, with that being said, it's also worth mentioning that the British actually didn't use all of their mortar shells, so we had some wonderful explosive mortar shells, some rifles, and the standard survival meal stuff. Now that the threat is gone, though, and all of that was taken care of, it was time for us to return to our torture chambers to begin beautifying them a bit. Well, as beautiful as a massive torture chamber for humanoid amphibian frog creatures could be. And thankfully, by the time we were finished with all that, our rifles were finally completed as well. And you know what that means, it's time for me to introduce to you our new soldier class, our brand new unit into the army. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you our cavalry units. I know what you're thinking, these are just stupid normal soldiers with funny hats. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Okay, look, maybe it is true, however, I did make them a bit more interesting by giving them facial hair, different head sizes, things like that, and also, most importantly, I ended up giving the soldiers some of the names that you wonderful people have been leaving in the comment section, so please continue doing that. I would eventually like to try and use the majority of the names you guys have been leaving. Because to be honest with you, I would like to continue this series for probably a very long time, even if we need to take some breaks here and there, so eventually I'd like to have some massive armies that I can use all those wonderful names. So thank you guys, of course, as always. I love you ever so much. I hope to continue growing this cavalry unit as well, as right now we only have 5 soldiers. And really, I could have added more soldiers, but we do need more horses with armor and whatnot, and also I kind of have some big plans. Some big plans that involve me not really wanting to split up our army too much right now. But you'll see what I mean. As for right now, though, we are going to be attacking a tribal settlement. These tribespeople are notorious for aiding the Frog King in his efforts against attacking us as well as our French allies, so something must be done about them. In other words, it sounds like they need a good old taste of the red, white, and blue. And of course, you already know that we were more than happy to oblige them in such an endeavor. Upon further inspection after arriving for the raid, it would appear that this base was quite large and developed. Nonetheless, though, as the thundering rain poured upon our American heads, we would prepare for our siege. We first began by tying up our donkeys and our horses next to the mortars. This would allow us, while getting our mortars ready, having our cavalrymen mount up as well. Then, of course, all at once the mortars were prepared, and we began firing off the mortar shells that the British had left behind in their siege against us. They were the perfect destructive power for attacking this tribe, as were our strapping young American soldiers. As you well know already, our lads were armed to the absolute teeth, some of them with the most sophisticated technology of the time. Others not so much, but that was okay though, because they could still put up one hell of a fight, as could President Henry and his own personal guard. There was no way in hell he was missing out on this battle. And it's a good thing too, because here come those devious tribespeople. But of course, as the earth shook beneath our feet with the thunder and the lightning and our faces drenched in the rain, we were more than prepared for this battle. Our noses were filled with the smell of gunpowder, our hearts filled with the courage of 1,000 lions, and better yet, our eyes filled with the sight of our enemies dropping at our feet. And as the lightning lit up the battlefield, we realized that the tribespeople were fleeing and we were victorious. Not only had we defeated this horrific tribe who had been aiding the Frog King and his army, but we had also claimed a new territory. A territory that, I might add, was well developed, as I mentioned earlier, but also ripe for a new colony. That's right, people. The Americans are expanding, and I'm not just talking about our beautiful fortification back at Rats Valley. No, I'm talking about brand new colonies. Now, quite a few of you guys had mentioned, especially earlier in the first few episodes, how we should try to have a challenge where we actually have 13 colonies. I don't think we're going to do that many, but 3 to 4 might be okay. And we're starting that here today with our second colony. Now, I don't really have a name for it just yet, so if you guys have any wonderful names for our new colony, be sure to leave that in the comment section down below. Of course, we began the new colony by going through the old buildings and whatnot and searching for anything useful. Unfortunately, there wasn't really much, but that's that's okay, at least there's a few beds. After that was completed, we went around the entire base, tearing down the old sandbags that line the outer walls. We also were cutting down a lot of trees during this time so we could collect plenty of wood. Because of course, as you well know, given the day and age and our technology of the time, wood is still the most abundant resource to get our hands on for any base building. And base building is exactly what we had in mind. We were going to build a second fortification around our brand new colony here, one of course that we can expand in the future, but for now this is going to be about the size of it, I suppose. Unfortunately, even given the fact that we had the vast majority of our army still here, it did take us quite a very long time to build these wooden walls with wooden towers at the corners and doorways. Now, of course, a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that there's a lot of thunderstorms and rain constantly happening here, probably from the battle with the fires that were started and things like that, but still, granted, it took quite a while. Eventually, though, the walls and gateways were completed, and as was our fortification here, and it was finally time for the majority of our military, at least, to go back home. The president and his men would return sometime in the future to check back in on our new colony. But as for now, they had a long journey back home ahead of them, and our new colonist here had a lot of work to do. There were a grand total of 8 colonists and 2 slaves. 5 of our colonists were from the Continental Army, and 3 of them, of course, were our militia members. Now, you may look at this group of people and say, wow, that's an odd choice of the people you chose to lead this colony. And I totally agree, but I also chose people that, I wouldn't care if they died. I joke, I kid. They'll be fine, probably. But my friends, that's going to do it for this episode. As the president travels back home and we work on our new colony, I must bid you farewell. A super huge, massive, large special thanks to my patrons. I really couldn't do this without you guys. I love you guys ever so much, and just thank you for supporting me. Thank you all for watching, of course, and supporting me in other ways, but patrons, especially you. If you guys watching this, if you're not a patron already, or you and somebody you love, or would like to support me on Patreon, there's always a link in the video description, as well as the channel bio, but I love all of you guys so much. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.